Imagine this, for whatever reason you turn up in a completely new world and receive a power that is absolutely broken. In most cases that would be a start of an epic adventure with blackjack and waifus, but what if this power is just as much a blessing as it is a curse? Hello comrade, my name is Mahis. Come, get yourself a beverage and sit down with me. We got unconventional suffering to explore. There is no shortage of trials and tribulations when it comes to isekai characters. Some go through hell and more before getting their happy ending. However, in this video, I want to focus on less obvious side effects of such power-ups with the help of 3 distinct examples: Natsuki Subaru, Ainz Ooal Gown-sama, and the Lightspeed Hero Masayuki. No major spoilers in this video, aside from a few key moments from what's already been adapted into anime, so proceed cautiously. Starting with this bundle of controversy, 2 things are rather apparent. His return by death is, by all definitions, completely broken, and he does in fact pay a steep price for using it in a form of physical pain. But there is another toll, arguably much more debilitating: the sheer mental agony of losing relationships with people he struggled so hard to build, and not knowing whether he went insane because Subaru can't even talk to anyone about this conundrum, let alone confirm that this is actually happening. It's not an entirely new concept. There are plenty of stories that utilize some sort of time loops, giving us insight into what happens to a person's psyche under these conditions. Groundhog Day is the first thing that comes to mind, and it's a very comprehensive piece on the topic. Then there are episodes from shows like Supernatural or Rick and Morty. Hell, even the picture of Dorian Gray kinda fits due to how it portrays the effects of doing whatever you want with seemingly little consequence. Now, it's totally reasonable to say that these are better stories overall, yet none of those situations come anywhere close to the complexity of what Subaru is dealing with. Mr. Connors was reliving the same exact day, and although the events did change based on his actions, he didn't have the curveball of a shifting safe spot. Natsuki has no idea whether he'll go back to a point in time he is familiar with or if it has been changed, which drastically limits his fuck around options because he might accidentally save the wrong progress. For instance, the whole capital of Lugunica loop was a disaster. He destroyed his relationship with Emilia, damaged her reputation, antagonized the knights, etc, etc. It's 100% his fault, shouldn't have done that. Yet think of how different the Groundhog Day would have been if Phil woke up in jail on February the 3rd. Yeah, and let's go back to that scene in the bedroom. Subaru is not entirely wrong here. Without this moron, she wouldn't be alive. He held her lifeless body and died himself to save her. It's totally reasonable for him to want to be nearby in case something else happens. And oh boy does he face a few something else happens on their journey. Even so, he crashed out in the worst way possible. Yes, he is an immature teen with more than one complex, but it would be very disingenuous to think that losing his bonds with Ram and Rem multiple times wouldn't have exacerbated these issues, especially his desire to hold on to a relationship with the only person who was kind to him this entire time, by any means necessary. Remember, his initial proper interaction with Emilia was practically a date where he befriended her, surprisingly with personality alone. You can't just write that off as a failed loop and continue as nothing happened. Look at Morty, he's an extreme example of that same phenomenon, cause he lived the loop way longer, but the result is identical. Because of all the feelings and knowledge he had already built up, he came off as a crazy creep who made absolutely zero sense. Add a few agonizing deaths to the total mess that is Subaru's mind, and you can easily understand why this interaction played out as it did. He had learned from this experience, that's good at least. However, there is still an issue of a stacking insanity debuff that can only be remedied by Titus level mental fortitude or with the help of another person. Rem, our precious angel, selflessly dragged his broken ass out of the pit of despair, proving that his efforts to save her and establish deep personal ties actually meant something. This is very important as it allowed him to focus on the results and to have hope for the future, which we could see in the form of advanced scheming, recruitment of allies, and general positive change in his persona. Yet Natsuki still holds it all inside until he meets Echidna, the only person who he can talk to about the return by death. Satella did much appreciate such intimacy with another woman and punished him, but the structural repairs to his mind were already done. Not completed, as he required a whole new therapy session with all the witches to properly get on the right path, which brings me back to the point of the video. His suffering didn't stop, he simply received the tools to help deal with it. Without spoiling anything, it only gets worse in both the difficulty of the challenges and the compounding effect of all his deaths/failures that keeps growing by the arc. Being able to travel back in time without losing the knowledge and skills you acquired is without a doubt a top-tier ability, yet if it comes with an ever-escalating brutality of ways to die as well as all this emotional baggage, I'll have to pass. The second candidate for an unconventional struggle is Ainz-sama, and if you're thinking I'm going to be talking about how the Bone Daddy can't have a boner, you are absolutely right. With so many waifus throwing themselves at you, having neither ability nor desire to partake is an oof and a half. However, this is only a tip of the iceberg that is becoming an evil undead overlord. Take his first major character hook, the constant effort to appear as the supreme ruler his subordinates expect. In most cases, he either tries to spin his actions as something beneficial to Nazarick, or just does what his advisors suggest, fearing ruining the facade. Stop and think about it for a second. Dude has created a whole new identity just to go out and do stuff instead of sitting there managing the tomb, and even then it comes back to bite him on the ass. Look at all these funny coincidences of being in the right place at the right time. Is it the hidden luck stat, which he has a lot of, or is it the world itself that places Ainz-sama in these situations to force him into the evil overlord occupation? It's not that far-fetched, considering reality warping powers of certain items, and that there is literally a mechanic to regulate his emotions. Which in itself is rather sketchy, as it's basically a clinical definition of emotional blunting, the core component of severe depression. He is turning into an undead both physically and mentally, we all know that. What I'm worried about is that he's turning into his own character, losing free will in the process. Not necessarily by means of the system changing him, it's my speculation after all, but because he doesn't have anything else. Everything around constantly reminds him of what he has lost. Even in the guise of Momon, he can't get away from it, since every adventurer's party, every quest brings out memories of Yggdrasil and his comrades. Just like Subaru, the Sorcerer King is profoundly lonely. He sees Jerknif as a friend, the Nazarick crew as family, but in reality, they're all either subordinates, zealots, or mutually beneficial acquaintances. There is no Echidna in the New World, there is no peer, there is no equal. He can't just sit down with anybody and speak his mind. Not Overlord's mind like with Ainz, Suzuki Satoru's mind, that of a regular office worker from a dystopian Japan who just wants to geek out and relax. Ainz-sama is too tied up with being the supreme ruler of Nazarick, which keeps him locked in a perpetual state of negative nostalgia. Don't believe me? There is a what-if side story where he got teleported to the New World alone 2 centuries early. Without the Nazarick baggage and constant paranoia, Ainz-sama actually finds an equal dynamic, forging a genuine friendship with Evil Eye. Together, they embark on a surprisingly chill adventure across the continent, pretty much cosplaying Ark and Ariane. Another issue with being an OP evil dude is that you are on a timer. You will run out of enemies to conquer. I've played Civilization enough times to know that when the entire map is of your color, every town is fully built and all the city-states revere you, there is nothing else to do. Real life is a bit more complex, that much I admit, yet this utopia nonsense will get old real fast. It's simply boring. When you barely face any actual challenges and can casually swat down opposing armies like pesky flies, the thrill of the game is completely gone, and what's left is micromanaging your subordinates or creating drama to keep yourself entertained. Sounds like a corporate middle management position, and I sure as hell don't want anything to do with that. You can say Machias, look at Rimuru, he's having fun building his nation and almost never has to conquer anyone. I agree, but don't forget that he doesn't have a legion of evil, racist, sadistic underlings who want nothing more than a complete domination over the land and the lower lifeforms that inhabit it. That's why I call Nazarick a baggage. It's a self-feeding, well-oiled machine of Ainz-sama trying to make his people happy at the expense of everyone else, and them trying to live up to his expectations by bringing him the world on a silver platter. he is completely stuck. So unless a new bunch of players show up to defeat him, the all-powerful Supreme One will be his own prisoner, locked in a tomb of loneliness. The third candidate for an unconventional isekai struggle is the Lightspeed Hero Masayuki. And before I continue, yes, I'm aware, you don't need to write that in the comments, let's not spoil anything for others. The fact of the matter is, if you were reincarnated with a unique skill Chosen One, you'd be giving up on life within a couple of years. Just like Ainz-sama, he's a victim of success, only this time it's the good kind of success on account of him being a hero and not an evil overlord. I won't repeat myself much since their situation is very similar and will focus mostly on different mental issues. Take the whole, their actions are always perceived in a specific way. Even though the ruler of Nazareth can't get away from 10 billion IQ allegations, he still does stuff himself, with most of his plans going exactly as expected, if not better. Mr. Honjo, on the other hand, doesn't control shit. Literally, the dude resolved a nationwide slave trade conspiracy just by looking for a fucking bathroom. No effort other than accepting the quest and later the rewards. Any adventure he goes on is a glorious success, because the reality itself will bend over backwards to empower his allies, weaken his enemies, and set him on the shortest path to speedrun whatever task. If Ainz-sama's facade drops, he's still a capable tactician, great leader, and can whack 99% of his subordinates one-on-one, let alone anyone from the New World, but Masayuki has nothing but vibes. That's why his anxiety is even worse, living every day with a severe humiliation dread. On top of that, the lack of control over the outcomes of one's actions is the leading cause of learned helplessness and dissociative disorder. Take Kanao prior to meeting the Kocho family. Her mind was completely shattered to the point where she wouldn't even eat unless instructed to. Because what's the point of doing anything when the result is the same? I'll be seen as a hero, people will chant my name, and so on. The only reason Masayuki is still sane is due to his unique skill actually doing something meaningful, like with freeing the slaves, the same way Ram was able to bring back Subaru by showing that his efforts do in fact matter. Also, clinical studies suggest that prolonged separation between one's internal identity and the public image often leads to a fractured self, which I find rather ironic. The last major issue with his power is once again boredom. Instead of running out of things to do, the Lightspeed Hero doesn't really do anything, which reminds me of a Carbot video about how World of Warcraft changed over the years. You are no longer playing the game. With so many arrows pointing in the direction you need to go and systems like a single button that does your entire rotation, you're practically an observer who will lose interest very quickly. It's fine when you launch your PC after a long day just to no-brain something and relax. Yet if it's your entire life that doesn't require active participation, that's very sad. The main takeaway here is this. With great power come great possibilities for fun, yet it also comes at a cost, not immediately apparent like with the return by death. Subtle, almost imperceptible, until it hits you like a truck. Was I, Mahi, secretly hoping for an absolute power into the microphone. Have a great, whatever time of the day you have. Until next time, cheers. Felicitations, malefactors! I'm endeavoring to execute this digital recording for the third consecutive iteration, suka, блять!